Welcome back to Orange Hat Reviews, everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful day. So, it is at the end of an era, as my buddy Vanya in the chat has said. And we are doing the finale of the mystery reviews. And this movie was guessed really quickly. It was Training Day. The hints that I gave were, let's see here, Corrupt Cop movie, Snoop Dogg, Three Wise Men, and Russians. Now, anybody who knows anything about Training Day would know that those are all dead giveaways. And so, yeah. So before I get this shindig going, before I get the review going, I do want to say thank you to everybody who has watched these streams with me, to Jade Shadowmar Jade, who joined one of these streams with me for Boondock Saints, and I also want to thank Steve Kenobi for joining me on this type of stream for Empire Strikes Back. I had a lot of fun with doing these streams. Unfortunately, they do have to cease, so I can begin a new type of stream that is coming next month called Tuesday Theme Streams, where you will know what movie it is ahead of time. And it's the same format, but it is going to be they're going to be themed. And before I get into this one, I do want to go through the list of all the previous mystery reviews. So the first one I ever did was the 50 Shades trilogy, when I did all three 50 Shades movie in one big review. The next one was Red 1 and 2 with Bruce Willis. Then I did Thor. Happened to be fortuitous that I did it back then on like 10 years, I think, after it came out, or 11 years. Or I think it was the 10 year. Into the Storm, Total Recall, the reboot, not the original. Legend of Tarzan, the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes duology, SWAT, the 90s Three Musketeers with Oliver Platt, Charlie Sheen, and Kiefer Sutherland, The Patriot, the extended edition for that, Silver Bullet, The Forbidden Kingdom, Arachnophobia, Boondock Saints, The Crow, 10 Things I Hate About You, A League of Their Own, Highlander, From Paris with Love, loved that movie, Battle Los Angeles, that was another good movie, The A-Team, the extended edition, I like that movie, The Punisher, Critters, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, the extended edition, The Breakfast Club, G.I. Jane, Gladiator, the extended edition, The Faculty, Jaws, End of Days, the 1990 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Big Trouble in Little China, The Relic, Gina Carano's debut in the movies Haywire, An American Haunting, Dreamcatcher, Top Gun, Final Fantasy VII Advent Children Complete, meaning the full version of it, Dragonheart, love doing that one, Willow, The One with Jet Li, X-Men Days of Future Past, the Rogue cut, not the theatrical, Alita Battle Angel, Frequency, John Wick, Revenge of the Sith, The Da Vinci Code, the extended edition, Teen Wolf, The Adjustment Bureau, Phenomenon, Bank Job, Predator 87, They Live, Rambo 4, or otherwise just known as Rambo, Wall-E, Reign of Fire, Fright Night, the original, The Prestige, Mask of Zorro with Antonio Banderas, Terminator 3 had a perfect dark ending, Edge of Tomorrow, or Live, Die, Repeat, Roger Rabbit, or Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Brightburn, Annabelle, The Right, The Exorcist, The Hunted, The Accountant, Bloodsport, The Rock, Captain America and the Winter Soldier, Prometheus, Lethal Weapon, Gremlins, Die Hard, Pulp Fiction, Powder, The Wrath of Man, The Marksman, or Psycho before The Marksman, then The Marksman, Legend, there's the theatrical edition, and then there's the other edition that I did small comparisons between. Warm Bodies, The Terminator, Dracula Untold, Ferngully, Boondock Saints 2, All Saints Day, the extended edition, The Green Knight, The Incredible Hulk, Blade, Resurrection F from Dragon Ball Super, Underworld Evolution, King Kong, or Godzilla, King of the Monsters, rather, The Empire Strikes Back with Steeg, Captain America, the First Avenger, Shin Godzilla, Ghostbusters Afterlife, Top Gun Maverick, 300, 47 Ronin, The 13th Warrior, Count of Monte Cristo, Independence Day, the extended edition, Jurassic Park, Demolition Man, Mortal Kombat 95, RoboCop, the original 80s one, Kiss of the Dragon, and Dread. And now we are finishing up with Training Day. Thank you to everyone who has been in the chat and and on the streams. I am very thankful that I got these things going. I honestly didn't think they would actually go this far, but I am glad that they did. But now I'm actually focusing on letting people know ahead of time when the streams are so that they can find out whether or not they want to watch the stream or not. But without further ado, let's say hello to the chat. We got Vanya in the chat and Venera. Boom. Yep. Howdy, Orange Hat, and the good folks of the chat. Unfortunately, won't be able to stay for the stream, but I hope everything is doing well, and the stream ends with a big bang. Take care, folks. Thank you so much for stopping in, Neozoic. And Junebug, good to see. No T2. You said you did T2 when we talked. If I didn't do T2, then that is an honest mistake on me, Vanya. I could have sworn I did T2, but if I didn't do T2, then that is a mistake I made. I am very sorry. But I have done T2 in a discussion format, not on the mystery reviews, but in the Terminator cinema reviews, where I reviewed all the Terminator movies, including Dark Fate, with a panel. So, let's get this one underway. We got, or nope, that's Monday Mayhem. Let's see here. Mystery reviews. There we are. Pulling up my talking points. So, yes, this movie was directed by Antoine Fuqua, starring Denzel Washington, Ethan Hawke, Dr. Dre, freaking Glenn Scott. Glenn Scott is a great character in this movie. Freaking Snoop Dogg, Macy Gray. This was her movie debut. Yeah, I know, right? Junebug, yeah. I discussed that one. Now, there are many other people in this movie. Ava Mendez is in this movie, and she gives full frontal in this movie. I mean, there's a fun fact about that in this movie, or in this review, folks, so definitely pay attention if you want to hear it. So, this movie is basically about the darker side of the police force, the 1% to 2% of the bad apples in police, and about one cop who wouldn't join that corruption when he was exposed to it. So then we get the beginning of this movie where Jake, Ethan Hawke's character, is waking up and he's looking at the clock the second, or he wakes up like seconds before it goes off, and then he's about ram really quickly. His wife is awake and she's feeding their child. So she's got an infant baby and whatnot. And so he's discussing this new assignment, and the irony of it, him envying the houses of the other cops, is that he doesn't know that the reason why they get all those bigger houses is because they are corrupt, and that they Sorry about that, folks. A small interruption. Is that the reason why they have all those big houses? Because they're pretty much corrupt in some shape, way, or form. Now, he then talks to Alonzo on the phone. He's like, I want to thank you for this opportunity. Click. He tells him where to meet him, and then he's like, click. He doesn't care. So it's like, wow. So meeting Alonzo in the diner. 8/29/97 was Judgment Day. 7C2. Yes, so it is also Terminator 2, by the way. Or it's also Terminator Day, folks. Skynet's rise and ascension. Eva Mendes. Swing. Ryan Gosling. I'm jealous of you. Maybe she should call Junebug. Wait, she's married to Ryan Gosling? Did not know that. So the fun fact about this diner that he meets up, or that he meets up with Alonzo in, it's called the Quality Coffee Shop, and it's on West 75th Street in LA. It was also featured in Seven, Ghost World, and Gone in 60 Seconds. So this diner has actually been in other movies, which is nice. And I really like this this issue, or this scene in this movie, because he wants to impress his new boss, but his boss is he's like, "Can I read my paper?" And so he's like, "Yeah, I'm sorry." So then he gets antsy, and so he's like, "What's your name?" Hoyt. Hoyt. This is a newspaper. It's 90% bullshit, but it's entertaining, and it entertains me. And you don't want me to read my paper. You don't want to entertain me, so you're going to entertain me. Tell me a story. Domestic partners with Ryan. Okay, I hate that thing, man. That just makes no sense. I mean, you're either man or wife, or you're not. But anyway, so the story of him and a drunk stop. He tells him about how his training officer. He keeps interrupting. He's like, "A liquor license? A what? Does she have a liquor license? Is she a dyke? Is she a lesbian?" And I mean, this gives you the idea behind who Alonzo is. And you really do get the idea that this guy might, in fact, just pretty much be bent. And so he originally offered to get some, or buy some breakfast for him, but he denied it. So then he's like, "Maybe I will get something today." "Oh no, the fuck you won't. You already screwed that up." So anyway, he's telling the story about how they pull this guy over for a drunken stop, and they find a bunch of guns in the back end, plus a bunch of freaking drugs in the car. I think it's like meth that he was talking about. He's like, he's got a bunch of meth in the dash, and it's like, oh damn, this dude was on his way to smoke his ex-partner, and they prevented a murder. So he's like, and that's the best you can do. You tell me, or that is very impressive that you could come in here and spin that deal of a drunk stop. That's the best you can come with. But I don't believe you. Did you tap that ass? You did tap that? And he's like, man, I got a wife and kid. You got a dick? You do got a dick, don't you? Yes or no? Do you have a dick? Yeah, I got it. All right. Now it lines up straight like this. And each one, you got a pocket. And in one of those pockets is money. Take out the money, boom, pay the bill. So now he offers to freaking buy him breakfast, but then he doesn't buy him breakfast. He actually makes him pay for the bill. It's like, oh, dang. So then they're going to the office. Now, the office is this tricked out big old car. I think it's like a Benz or something. I forget which ones they are. I'm terrible when it comes to automotive, folks. I'm sorry. I admit it. I'm not a car person. And then he's like, this is definitely not the motor pool. No, but she is a beauty. And they're playing Still Dre from Dre 2001. I used to have that CD. I think I still do somewhere. And he's like, so we're taking this to the office? Where's the office? Back at the video. You're in the office, baby. And he tricks this thing out, raising it up off of off the frame and whatnot, like they did back in the early 2001s or the 2000s. Yeah, me too. I hate it too, but they haven't gotten married. Therefore, legally, they're not husband and wife. Yeah, I guess you got a good point there. So, another fun fact, we got David Ayer, who wrote this script. And he wrote the screenplay in 1995 and received responses that were either very positive or very negative. After LAPD officer Rafael Perez, so this movie is semi-based on a real thing. He was caught stealing cocaine from an evidence locker. The script received more fans, including Warner Brothers, who bought the script. Now, one of the things I like about the training bit between Hoyt and Alonzo is the cinematography, where he's telling you got to get used to the streets, you got to know what they sound like, you got to hear those streets, man. And you got to understand that out here, don't try any of that rookie bullshit, it'll get you killed. So we then see the small drug transaction, and you see how this movie does a really good job at hinting that Alonzo is corrupt as fuck. I mean, you see that when when they go to call it in, he's like, stay off of the rover. So it basically means, or when a cop is not reporting what they're doing, that's a no-no. And hello, Riot Kitty. Always a pleasure to see you. Thank you for tuning into the finale. So also, folks, make sure that you arrest or smash that like button. Don't go corrupt on it, but definitely hit it. So then they take the drugs from one of his informants that informs for him, and they take it, and he's like, a good narcotics agent knows narcotics. A good narcotics agent loves narcotics and will have narcotics in his blood. And he's trying to get Hoyt to smoke it. It's weed. Apparently, it's a bad batch of weed. And so he's like, no, man, you ain't going to smoke it. No. So he slams on the brakes in the middle of an intersection, folks. This is one of the best scenes ever. He slams on the brakes, and don't give YouTube any ideas, right? Yeah. And he holds the gun to Hoyt's head. He's like, what the F is wrong with you? Or F is wrong with you right now, man? If I was a drug dealer, you'd be dead right now. You turn that stuff down on the street, you are a dead man. I mean, get the heck out of here. Go back to your division. Freaking rookie and whatnot. And he's like, no, I'll smoke it, man. I'll smoke it. Give it here. I'll smoke it. So he ends up blasting away on it. Man up. N-word. That's how they say it. I'm not saying it. And this guy's beeping. He's like, man up. And then the guy keeps beeping. Hey, shut the F up and wait. I love how he points. And the guy's like, yeah. That is such a great scene in this. But a lot of this movie takes place in the car. For a lot of it, it does take place in the car. And they actually have great cinematography for in this car when they're doing certain moments. When they're showing Jake high as a freaking kite, they actually do a really good job at showing a green tinge over what he's seeing. And then you realize it wasn't just the weed that he was smoking. Apparently, it was laced with PCP. Now, originally, it was freaking Mexico's finest, they call it. But it was Alonzo who actually, when he was taking it, he sprinkled a little bit of PCP in the weed to get Jake freaking high. And he's like, oh my God, man, I'm going to get piss tested and I'm going to be out of that job. He's like, no, the lieutenant's got our back. We know a week before we piss. So it's like, okay. And then he's like, it's not like I held a gun to your head, man. You're an adult. You made that decision yourself. But he did hold a gun to his head. So it's like, he ain't really going to complain about it. So then we get to Roger, the first informant of Denzel's character, Alonzo. Now, Roger is played by Glenn Scott, man. Glenn Scott plays this role very freaking well. I mean, Glenn Scott is an actor. You've seen him, or if you've seen the Daredevil Netflix series. He played Stick. He's been in Jason Bourne movies as one of the heads. He was, or he's done a bunch of movies. He also worked in the movie Sucker Punch that Zack Snyder did, where he is the guy that helps all the girls with their missions, and then later on is just a lowly bus driver. Great freaking actor. He's got such range. And so Roger ends up basically giving a nice little speech to the man and the snail joke, where this man sees a snail on his porch, throws it or chucks it over the back of his house. It hits a rock, crushes the shell, but the snail works its way back a year later back onto the porch. And the guy comes out and is like, what the fuck's your problem? And he's like, if you can figure that out, you'll figure the streets out. And then we get the whole Smiles and Cries thing. And so Roger's planning on leaving in a year, which comes to play later. Fun fact, Glenn Scott was the original Man on Fire in 1987, and then Denzel did it in 2004. Ain't that something? Isn't that something? So we then see them leaving, and they stop, or as he's sleeping it off because he's high, or he's still high as a kite. And when he tells that joke, I love that. Or before this next scene, going back to the other one, he's like, "Fuck!" He starts laughing, and then he sees he sees that Alonzo's not laughing, and neither is Glenn. He's like, "That's not funny. That's not funny." He is still high. I mean, he's looking at the drink like he doesn't even know what to do with it, and he's like, and he's just high as hell, kind of like I was a few days ago, but I didn't do any PCP. I only did pot, and it was those edibles, and I have already said too much. Totally legal, by the way. Stay in New York. But yeah. So we then see the next scene where he stops a rape in an alley. And this is the scene that literally is the linchpin of this entire movie. This scene here plays later on and is very important because this girl just happens to be connected with the Hillside 13, which is a gang of Latinos. And, well, she gets told to bounce, and they start, or after Ethan finally collars them both, that's when Alonzo comes walking in, and he's like, "Thanks for the help." He's like, "Oh, you know what you're doing. You could handle it." So then they're like, so they take the dude, one of the guys' crack and crushes it, pockets the $60 from the dude's wallet, and then tells another guy who tells Denzel to suck his dick. There's a kid in the other room, so I can't really say it loud. He's like, okay, so he stands him up, he pulls out a knife, and the guy is freaking, now he's all scared. And so then he pulls his guns, and he goes like this with the barrels, like this, kind of like a dude with knives. That was Denzel Washington's idea. And so he's like, so make a choice. Which nut do you want? Because he has his guns down this dude's pants, and he's gonna blow the dude's nuts off. Like, just make a decision. Just make a decision. And he's like, no, okay, put your hands on your head, close your eyes. He takes both of his guns and just nuts, hammer, boom, lift that guy, and then tells him to get the heck out of there. And as they're walking away, Ethan Hawke picks up the girl's wallet. Nice little flashy red thing. And he's like, she was 14 years old, man. Sickos. And so he's kind of pissed off about it because he doesn't understand that this is how it. And he's like, doesn't like Alonzo's way of thinking. And so he even calls him out. He's like, you can't just do stuff like that, man. He's like, and he gives the speech, to catch the sheep or to protect the sheep, you catch the wolf. And then he starts yell, or they start getting into a thing, and he starts yelling at him. He's like, and then later on in that very same scene, he's like, "Look, no matter what I say, you did the right thing," because he's willing to let jungle justice happen. He's like, "Those fools will probably get capped by the hillside tresses. Her cousin's a banger. They'll probably take care of themselves. What, street justice? Yeah, let them. God willing, let them kill themselves out." That's a really telling thing too. Because LA back then, LA riots and whatnot, or in 1995. So even, or 1992 was the LA riots, but 1995 was when the screenplay was written. But also when Raffaele, what's his name, was caught with being corrupt. And so then we get the 2001, which is when this movie was released. So it's all still very much LA as a shit, or as a shit place. So now we get the Snoop Dogg scene. He's like, "What can I do for you, man? I'd like to buy crack. Crack? Yeah, like $20 worth." And so he sees Alonzo, and he's like, "Smells like bacon up in this motherfucker. What do you think I am? Some sort of player fool?" He's like, "Fuck you, N-word." And he starts rolling off because he's actually in a wheelchair. And so he's wheeling away. And he's like, "Go fetch, dog. Are you serious? Yeah, go fetch him." And so he pulls up into this Korean joint, and he goes like this. So he's basically eating the rocks. To no rocks, no evidence, no crime. Well, Ethan Hawke gets in there, freaking kicks him out of his wheelchair, finds a gun on him and whatnot. And it's like, oh, dang. So then Alonzo comes in, and he's like, "I gave it up, dog. I don't do that anymore." He's like, "Got a pen? Like a red pen? Where are the rocks?" "I gave it up. I don't do that anymore." And so he jams the pen down his throat a little bit, causing him to bring it up. And he's like, "Oh, look at that. What is that? Motherfucking crack, man. Yeah, Jimmy Crack on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, you federally effed it now. You got you got crack and a gun. And with somebody with your record, each bullet is 10 years. So he starts popping the bullets, and he's like, "Give me a name." And he's like, "I ain't no snitch, man. 20 years. Fuck. 30. Come on, give me a name." And so he drops a name, Sandman. And he's up in county. And so they're going to go after the Sandman instead. So he's like, "You want to collect the evidence?" "Oh, fuck that." No, that's. He's like, "Yeah, that's right." I mean, and you just see how he hasn't arrested anyone. He's taken drugs from them. He hasn't arrested them. And this does kind of get called out. And he's like, "Man," or because he does tell him, he's like, I have over 15,000 years of incarcerated, or 15,000 years of incarceration. How many felons have you collared?" "That's right. I rest my case." So another fun fact is that Hawke was upset at Washington. I mean, Ethan Hawke almost actually walked away from this movie in the audition phase, because apparently Denzel Washington was actually improvising during their test screen, and he later claimed he considered going back to the room to tell them all to go to hell, when he got a phone call saying that the audition went great and the part was his. So it's like, oh dear, dude, it may have pissed you off, but you got the role. So then we get the scene with Macy Gray. Now, this was Macy Gray's first audition. Now, let me see if I could find it. The talking point. Eva Mendes, the NAACP. The film. Alrighty, let's see here. Washington Hawke. This was Macy Gray's film debut. When the singer was researching her part as Sandman's wife, Gray went around one of the neighborhoods wearing a wig and a gold tooth so that people wouldn't notice her. I'm sorry, but the second she talked, I would have noticed her. just me. I mean, her voice is not, or is very uncommon. It's not common at all. So they go in, and he's like, "What are we doing here? We're here to serve this warrant." And he's like, "Oh man, no." He's like, "Yeah, I mean, why? Because we got a badge. We're the police. We get to do whatever the fuck we want to do." And so they go in. Now, there's this kid, Dimitri, in this movie. You have seen that kid before if you have seen the MCU. That kid who plays Dimitri, the nephew of Macy Gray in this movie, happens to be Denzel, or not Denzel, but Forrest Whitaker's younger brother, Denzel Whitaker. Yeah, I didn't notice that. And you see him in the MCU as Forrest Whitaker's younger self, Zuri, in Black Panther. So isn't that nice? This movie connects to the MCU in one indirect way. So, let's see here. Yeah. Right, so they served warrant, and then you see frickin' when they serve the warrant, or that fake warrant, because it's not a real warrant, and you see Denzel tossing the place, searching, making it look like it's an actual raid, but then you see him doing this, like putting something in his jacket, like he's taking something. Well, turns out he did steal money in this. And so she's like, "I want to see that warrant. You got to give me a copy." And he's like, "Okay." He's a warrant. It's just a freaking, like, it's a menu or something. And so they're trying to get out of there quick while she comes out, or she goes in there to check something. And she's like, "Give me back my money, you fools." And she's talking over to the other guys. And this is in a place called Imperial Courts, which is a very dangerous town, apparently. And so these guys start coming out, looking, or start shooting on the car. And so he just drops out and just starts blasting like this. One gun like this, sideways, and the other one shooting out like that way. And so they managed to get out of there. And he's like, "Oh my God, dude, that was not cool." That was, or it's like, she was, or he's like, "We were serving a warrant. We were just making sure that the house was drug free." Yeah, drugs, runs, yeah, money. Speak on it, son. She was talking about cash, dude. And she was just trying, and he's like, "Yeah," and she's a dumb bitch. She was just trying to get us killed. That's how they roll in that area. So, hey, Ruben Thomas, good to see you. Welcome to the finale of the Mystery Reviews. So, another fun fact here. Let's see here. I want to make sure that I get it all in kind of close to chronological order. The film was shot in LA's most dangerous neighborhoods. Originally, production was told that shooting in the Imperial Courts housing project was off limits for safety reasons. The community wanted the movie to happen and to be as unflinchingly honest as possible, so the ban was lifted. Fuqua cast residents of South Central, Crenshaw, Firestone, Inglewood, Rampart, Echo Park, Lincoln Heights, and Imperial Courts in Watts in small roles as the extras. So he, or Antoine Fuqua, actually saved a lot of money on the budget by hiring extras, because that way you don't have to pay him too much, but also added a huge layer of authenticity to this movie, which is a good thing, because that way you're letting people know just how dangerous those kind of areas are. So then we get to the jungle scene where, let's see here. We know that this place is very dangerous. He's like, "Man, this place is dangerous. Are you sure we want to be going in here?" And he's like, "Oh, you heard of this place? Yeah, it's the jungle, man. You don't come in here with anything less than a platoon." And we see that Alonzo, basically, he's like, "I own this place, basically. I treat him fairly, and that's why they let me in." And we see that this one guy named Bone is lets him in. He's talking with him. He's like, "Thank you for helping out my cousin and whatnot." And then he walks through, And then Bone is talking to the other guys. I hate that man. I can't stand that guy anymore, man. So you now know that the jungle secretly hates Alonzo because he has so much leverage on all of them. So we get the nice introduction to Eva Mendes, and who Denzel's tapping in this. And we got a great scene, or a great bit to the end of this scene, where we meet little Alonzito, which is Alonzo's son. And we see how Denzel or Ethan Hawke fell asleep with the little one next to him. So they were just taking a nap and whatnot. And I just noticed it's pouring out. So we then see the gun out, where it shows that Denzel has a gun out looking down at Jake like, now I'm not liking you, because he was getting to know the son a little bit to basically, pass time while Alonzo dips his stick, gets it wet and whatnot. So then they end up getting out of there. And another fun fact, Eva Mendes, let's see here. Yep, Eva Mendes was ready to quit acting. The then 27-year-old was bored doing terrible, cheesy, horrible movies before she got to play Alonzo's mistress, Sarah. It motivated her to keep going as an actress. So the movie that gave everybody a full-on naked Eva Mendes is the movie that kept her into acting. Okay. So, yeah, that happened. So we then, what's the next scene? The three wise men, the top cops, the captains, all are corrupt in this scene. And there's this nice joke about a serial burglar who packed his ass full of peanut butter during his sentencing. So before he was getting sentenced, he got his hands on peanut butter and packed his ass crack with it. And when he goes up before the judge to make a statement, he reaches down his pants, pulls out the peanut butter, and licks his fingers clean. So the judge fell for it, thinking he's nuts, and transfers him to the psychiatric, and where he'll do 6 months, and that's it. Well, the detective is like, you know what? After this guy gets out, I'm going to find him on the streets, and I'm going to do him. I'm just going to kill him. These are very corrupt cops. So these are the ones that Alonzo answers to. So you don't screw with them. And they know that Alonzo has a price on his head because of a very expensive weekend in Vegas. And that the Russians are gunning for him. And they remind him, he's like, they don't care if you're a cop. The Russians will kill you. They don't care. So he's like, all right, well, I'll cash in an account. My first one, my oldest one, my first one. And so he needs their permission to get a search warrant to legally search the house so that he could take or skim the till from that house, because he knows that guy's carrying millions of dollars. So they give it the green light. He's like, go get the car. I'll be right back. And he drops 40 G's in the back end of the three wise men's car. And so he's like, how much was in that jacket? About 40 G's. Oh, yeah? What's that for? You really want to know? He's like, yeah, I really want to know. Nothing's free in this world, Jake. Not even arrest warrants. Christ, I didn't want to know. I always thought Anton Fuqua is an underrated actor that actually directed this movie. So, yeah. So then we let's see here, three wise men. Another fun fact, Eminem turned down the role as Jake. He was approached to act alongside Washington and ended up starring in 8 Mile instead the next year. Tobey Maguire, Ryan Philippe, Freddie Prinze Jr., Scott Speedman, and Paul Walker also tested for the role of the rookie cop. So Paul Walker almost ended up in this film, folks. But then he would go on to do Fast and Furious. So, we then have another, or I'm also going to give 2 fun facts right now, folks. Ethan Hawke saw real corruption from cops during his research period. While conducting research for the role for Hoyt, Hawke tagged along with a police officer who confiscated 2 kilos of cocaine, then sold part of that evidence for information on a murder. It showed Hawke how the line was for the police, which, believe me, folks, there is a gray line. If you ever want to know just how bad things can get in police or in the police world, watch the show The Shield with Michael Chiklis. Great show. I highly recommend it, especially, but only if you are not squeamish about sex and crime and whatnot. That show was on television, but it was late night television. Let's just say that. So we then get introduced to the corrupt 4 other cops in the unit. Nick Shinland, who plays bad guys all around TV and movies everywhere. He was in the Chronicles of Riddick, played Toombs, and he's got that real like slick voice, kind of like this. And he plays that. He plays one of the corrupt cops. Dr. Dre is also one of the corrupt cops. And then you got 2 others. I can't remember their names. And so they go in to tax Roger. Now, Roger is then murdered by Alonzo in this scene. He's like, or a cop who kills somebody in the line of duty in the afterlife, they become his slave. So go ahead, start an entourage. He wants Ethan to shoot Roger. And he's like, there's about $4 million in here, and you just took part in a $3 million bust. $3 million, you said it was 4. And so, yeah, there's a $250,000 each. And so he's learning that this is the darkest side. They're stealing money from evidence, logging in less than what was there, and they just murdered Raj because he wanted Hoyt to shoot him, but he wouldn't. So he's like, rookies, guess you want something done, you got to do it yourself. And then he just blasts Roger. And then 4 other cops in the unit all said, rookie came in spraying. Hoyt shot him. Yeah, Hoyt shot him. Hoyt shot him. All 4 of them said Hoyt shot him. Plus, they had to shoot another one, or one of the other cops, to make it look like a bust gone wrong. So one of them accidentally gets shot through the vest, and it ends up like a timely manner now. So when he's like, but I didn't shoot him, you did. And so that's when the threat comes out. An LA officer was killed today serving a high-risk warrant in Echo Park. The LAPD spokesman says he is survived by a wife and infant child. Shit gets deeper. You getting the picture, Jake? Yeah, I get the picture. So he pulls the shotgun out of his hand and holds it straight to Denzel's face. And he's like, that's the second time you pull a gun to my head. There will not be a third. And the others hold their guns on him. And he's like, look, man, this is how it's done. And he's like, well, here's the thing, Jake. You shoot me, these guys shoot you, and then I'll go down. And you've been smoking PCP all day, Jake, haven't you? You've been planning this all day. I've been planning this all week, son. He basically had this entire plan to make Jake dirty in case Jake didn't go along with it. He was going to make him look like a dirty cop and a patsy in order for all this stuff to go smoothly. So then he's like, just clear your head. You're a virgin shooter above suspicion if this plays out. And so in the scene that is award-worthy, the next scene here, it's not what you know, it's what you can prove. And so we then get the next scene, But before that, here's a big fun fact for you all, folks. The NAACP, the African American film people, they paid Denzel Washington a visit during the making of this film, and they weren't happy. They weren't happy with Washington or with Denzel portraying a corrupt police officer. And the way that Ethan Hawke says it, the NAACP came to the set and said, "What are you doing?" Hawke recalled to the Hollywood Reporter. And, you know, I never had a political organization talk to me about what roles I had picked. And Denzel, I remember him saying, "What? Al Pacino can play a bad guy. Gene Hackman can play a bad guy. I can't play a bad guy. I'm an artist. That's how I lead. Not by being some dubious role model, by only playing squeaky clean people. I'll be a role model by being great at my job." So it's like, yeah, there you go. Now that is impressive to me. Obviously, that is from what Hoyt was saying. So now Jake is seen as a hero for going with this, and the aftermath is well done. The slow motion sells it very well. The phone call that Alonzo is talking to one of his boys with, he's like, "Make sure you keep that bathtub clean," which comes to play later on. And now he's then given the speech, or another bigger speech, to Hoyt, and Hoyt's like, "It can't be like this." And he's like, "It is. I'm sorry that I exposed you to it. It is. It's ugly, but it's necessary. And I walk a higher path, son. And in order to be trusted in this job, you need a little dirt on you for people to trust you. Otherwise, nobody will trust you, and that can get you killed." It is such a great scene here, folks. Like, Denzel deserves a freaking award for that scene alone. So then, he's like, "Okay, we're heading out to the other area." So they are in the hillside, and Cliff Curtis, a great actor, plays Smiley. And this was a setup scene for Jake to get killed, because he realized, or Alonzo knew that Jake was no longer going to go through or with all this shit. So he basically called these boys up, Smiley and them, to do in Jake, because unless he went through with it. And he knew that Jake is not going to go through with this shit. So he takes him there. He's like, "I got to hit the head and then we'll be right out." Well, he disappears, and they're playing poker. And I like Cliff Curtis, and he starts telling, he's like, "There ain't nothing out for you there, Holmes." He realized that Alonzo left him. And so he's like, or so he tells him, he's like, "Yeah, Alonzo, he's in the Russians for $1 million. Now, Alonzo had a very bad weekend in Vegas, and some Russians talking shit, and Alonzo beat him to death. Well, that Russian turns out he's a somebody. And now Alonzo, he's in the Russians for $1 million. If he doesn't show up downtown with that money by midnight tonight and not a minute after, he's dead." So that's when that's when Ethan Hawke finally clicked. These guys are going to kill me here. So he decides to take the first step, tries to get out of there, but he doesn't. They put him into the bathtub with a shotgun to his face, and they're like, "Hold on, let me get his money, Holmes." So they end up finding that 14-year-old girl's wallet. And he's like, "Smiley, you're going to trip, Holmes. Isn't this your cousin?" And this starts to piss off Smiley. He's like, "What are you doing with this?" "Oh, my God, Christ, dude. She was getting raped in MacArthur Park. I found it. And so he tells him about the incident that happens there. So he's like, "We're going to get to the bottom of your bullshit. We're going to get to the bottom of it right now." So he calls up his cousin. And he's like, "Did you go to school today?" She's like, "Yep, every class." "Are you being truthful? You didn't ditch?" "No, I didn't ditch. I heard different." "Oh, from whom?" And he's like, "Speak to the cops today?" That tipped her off that she got caught. She's like, and he's like, "Come on, Letty, don't bullshit me. Just tell me what's going on." And so she explains the whole situation, where there's these two crackheads that wanted to harm her in a very disgusting way possible. And so she's like, but everything's fine because this cop came and kicked the crap out of him. And he's like, this cop, what did he look like? He was a white boy, young, and he's like, nothing else happened? You okay? Yep, we're going to be talking about this later. And so hung up, pulls the shotgun off. He's like, Vato was telling the truth. And so they pull him up, and he's like, hey, you know this was just business, right? Thank you for having my cousin's back. And it's like, holy crap, that moment earlier where he saved that girl, saved his life later on in this very same day. A lot of people don't realize this. This movie takes place over the case of one day, which is freaking great because it shows that just how well paced this movie is. So so they have to so he's now on his way back to the jungle because he knows that's where his mistress is. So another fun fact, Ethan Hawke and Denzel Washington sometimes continued talking as their fictional selves after Fuqua yelled cut. By the time Fuqua would then tell the camera operator to turn the camera back on, it would be too late because they stayed in character even after he yelled cut. So it's like, oh my God, really? And now there was also a deleted scene, which I really like that really sells this point a little bit. They cut it out for timing purposes because this movie was already running over 2 hours with credits. It was with Smiley, Cliff Curtis's character, explaining what he was supposed to do. He was to hang Hoyt's body on fire out in a tree in front of his wife's house, in front of their house, for his wife and child to see. He was supposed to be hanging there dead burning. And instead, well, it doesn't work out like that because of him saving their Smiley's cousin. He's like, it was just business. And so then he also gives up where Alonzo is. He's like, where is Alonzo? He's like, he's over in the jungle. And so we get the scene where he goes after Alonzo in the jungle, and the people there, he's like, I'm here for Alonzo. They let him through. They fucking let him through. And so he tries arresting Alonzo. And Alonzo tries playing it off. All right, man, you passed. Good job. You're a narc. Congratulations. He's like, no, he's not playing. So he's like, okay. He's like, I want you to pull out all your guns, put them in the pillowcase. You could you fuck your meeting with the Russians. You're not going to make it. And he's like, okay, you're going to arrest me. What can you prove? You've been smoking PCP all day. They're going to test your blood in the lab. You're going to be out of a job. Where's your evidence? It's not what you know. It's what you can prove. Where's your evidence? My evidence is right there. So, well, then there comes the whole battle. Now, Alonzo has a shotgun that was hidden underneath the bed with a nice slide hinge, which allows him to turn it toward anybody who's in that area. So that's a nice little trick. And so then he's like, come on, Jake. Oh, where does my little Jake gone? Oh, where can he be? Boom. And he's like, oh, I see you. And that's when little Alonzito, the little son, his son, he's like, Hoyt, there's my son. Remember, rule number 1, life. Don't hurt him. So they're trying to get the boy to move to one or the other, and the boy just is too dang scared. So when he realizes that Denzel is empty, he goes and grabs the boy to get out of the way, and that's when Alonzo runs out while the mother is yelling at him. And then so he goes to chase after him after the mother gets to Alonzo, or to her son, little Alonzo Jr. And we get the nice rooftop beat down where he kicks the crap out of Ethan, and then he goes to run. Well, as he's driving out, Ethan somehow just lands on his front end and forces him to crash. Well, that's when the entire jungle comes out to see what's going on. And Hoyt's just had enough. He's beating on him. He pulls out the cash and whatnot, and he pulls the gun on him. He's like, and that's when he comes out and he's like, first person to drop this fool, rich man. He's like, I need that money, Jake. He's like, I told you, this is my money. It's my evidence. You want to go home or you want to go to jail? And he's like, you ain't going to shoot me, man. And so he's like, somebody drop this fool. Well, Bone comes out with his revolver, or with a 38 snub. And you think that he's going to try doing something. He's like, you got us wired wrong, homie. You put in your own around here. And he lays down the revolver, basically saying, I dare you to pick it up, because then that cop has every justification to shoot your ass. Pun intended. I just realized what I said, pun intended. So yeah, there's a pun intended here. So he's like, you gonna shoot me in the back, chick? You know what they get you, or you know what you get for that? The gas chamber. You know what the gas chamber smells like? Pine oil. That's where you're heading. Pine oil heaven. I'm gonna get that gun. I'm gonna get that money, and you ain't gonna shoot me. I don't think you're gonna shoot me. So he reaches down for the gun, and that's when Jake shoots him in the ass. So when I said shoot your ass, kind of went literally. And so he's like, oh, you shot me in the ass. The next one will kill you. So do you want to go to jail or you want to go home? And so, yeah. That's when Bone picks up the revolver, holds it on him, and he's like, you bounce up out of here, Jake. We got this. And that's when Alonzo is absolutely done, because Jake walks away and he's like, I am running cases all up in here. None of you all safe. You all are all going to jail. And he's like, I'm the police. I own this place, or I own here. You just live here. And everybody starts walking away. King Kong ain't got shit on me. And well, one of the guys there, you'll recognize, big old strappy black dude, black tank top, looking at Alonzo after Jake bounces out of there. You'll know him in The Expendables as Hail Caesar. Terry Crews was in this movie, and I didn't even know. He didn't have a speaking role, but then I'm like, that's Terry Crews. And I'm thinking to myself, damn, dude, that was great. So Alonzo drives out, and he drives up to this vehicle at an intersection. He sees it's just a woman lighting up a cigarette. And so he's getting sick and tired of waiting. He also shifts in his seat because his ass hurts from getting shot there. And that's when some cars pull up. And so he's trying to back out, but the van that he was sitting next to with the woman boxes him in. Then the Russians come up and light the car up. They just open fire, lighting it up. And it's like, oh, dang, dude. So, yeah. Then you see him coming out hard to breathe because he got shot up. And the Russians then finally open fire, putting an end to him. And then all the vehicles drive off, including the one with the woman in it. The woman was there as a plant. They knew where he was going to be. And so, yeah, you see Alonzo dead. And then there's the scene where Hoyt goes home. Now, this was actually an extended scene because they show Hoyt coming in, and it's the three wise men were waiting for him. You actually see them in the car behind his house, or next to his house where he pulled into the driveway, but you don't see the full scene. All you see is him going in the movie. You see him going in there, and just you hear the over narration of Alonzo being shot in the line of duty. So the three wise men spun it. But in that scene, in the extended version of that scene, you actually hear the three wise men. They're like, what'd you do with the money? It's in evidence. It's at the station. I vouched it in. So now they're like, oh my God, what? And so it's like, oh crap. So they're, without missing a word, they turn around and get into the car. They're like, son of a bitch. This man vouched in that, or the rest of the evidence. Yeah. So basically, he's going to kill his entire career to make sure that he did the right thing, because they're going to have to question him as to why there was a bad, or there was $1 million missing from that bust. And then he's going to drop, or he's basically going to snitch on all the other four who said, or who are all going to line up for Alonzo instead, even though Alonzo's dead. So this is basically the scenario of what happens afterward. He's dead. He's not going to live very much longer, because one of those four cops are going to not take the fact that they've just been accused of corruption, and they're going to go after his ass. So what he would better do is go to the FBI about this. How would you guys like to nail a bunch of corrupt cops in the LAPD? But I want protection. I mean, I'm not seeing a positive outlook for Hoyt in this, because honestly, even if he leaves the division, they finally test his blood, he's got PCP in the system, he goes to jail and he loses his badge. It's a great movie, but what happens to Hoyt after is kind of great speculation. But anyway, folks, that is going to be the video. Thank you so much to everybody who tuned in. Riot Kitty, Junebug, Ruben Thomas, Vanya, and anybody else who may have tuned in. Thank you all so much for this. It's been a ride. It has been a ride with all these. Now, objectively speaking, Training Day is around an 8 out of 10. There's some cutting issues, some continuity issues, there's some writing issues, but for the most part, this movie does hold up solid. Subjectively, it's a 9 out of 10. I really enjoy the film. I wish they had put in those 2 deleted scenes, because they would have given the proper context of how he knew where Ethan knew where Alonzo was going to find him in the jungle. So how would he know where to go? You know, doesn't make sense. So yeah, moviegoer, if you like these kind of movies, it's for you. It's a 10 out of 10. Otherwise, I would say it's more of a 9 or an 8.5 to a 9 out of 10. There does get a little bit of slow in some areas, or it does get slow in some areas, but I love the fact that this movie takes place over one day. Anyway, that is the video, folks. Thank you so much to all those who were with me on this journey. If you like this video, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, share, all that jazz. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. There are no more mystery hit reviews, so stay tuned for Tuesday themed streams. Next month, we're starting with Batman movies. And I believe Batman 89 is where we are starting. Anyway, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. This has been Orange Hat Reviews. Have a wonderful day, and always remember, stay humble.